It's Wisconsin Today. I'm Kate Archer-Kent.
And I'm Rob Farrett. The legislature's powerful budget writing committee, Joint Finance, was back in executive session yesterday, hammering out parts of its version of a 2-year spending plan.
The panel took up aspects of Governor Evers' proposal to change the correction system, but delayed a decision on whether to close the embattled maximum security prison in Green Bay.
Last week, Republicans on the committee voted for a $1.3 billion tax cut plan over the next 2 years, and the committee is expected to take action on more parts of the budget tomorrow.
To get an update on the work, we turn to a Democrat on the 16-member committee. State Representative Tip McGuire of Kenosha is here, serves the 64th Assembly District in the southeast corner of the state. Representative McGuire, welcome to Wisconsin Today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Starting here with the UW, which at yesterday's meeting, the UW system budget was on the agenda, taken off by Republicans. What do you know there? What reasons were given?
Well, I don't have any of the reasons given. I do think that we all heard the rumor that they were going to cut $87 million from the UW budget. I think a bizarre move, given that we have a tremendous surplus in the state right now, and that the UW has been one of the driving forces behind our economy for decades, and continues to be something that helps generate economic activity across the state.
Governor Evers' budget blueprint calls for about a $700 million increase in state funding for the UW system. We're hearing a potential $87 million cut. Why are the two sides so far apart?
Well, I think ultimately what we're seeing across the country at the federal level and now at the state level has been a complete disregard for the value of education and how it helps generate economic activity in Wisconsin and across the country. I mean, we've seen Donald Trump's attacks on universities. We've seen the federal Department of Education, cutting money to our districts here. And then last week we saw the first education budget, budget provision to pass through Joint Finance that didn't have an increase in equalization aid, or general school aids, as we call them, since 2011, when Scott Walker was waging his war on education. It feels as though there just seems to be, on the Republican side, a deference to the extremists who want to defund education at all levels.
Turning now to corrections, which did get some movement yesterday. Governor Evers has proposed a significant overhaul of the state's correction system, his proposal costing roughly $500 million to make the series of changes. What did the Joint Finance Committee vote on and pass, and how does it compare to what Evers envisions?
Well, honestly, they didn't do any of the pieces, the foundational pieces that will allow us to ultimately start closing facilities. And I think, one of the things that we noted yesterday during the committee was that while they don't want to increase position authority, and they keep saying that there are so many open positions at the Department of Corrections, they also went significantly lower than the governor in paying overtime for our correctional workers, who now have to work a lot longer hours and under difficult circumstances. And so it really felt like it was a wish casting moment, where they were saying, we hope that there isn't very much overtime, even though we aren't giving you new positions. We hope that we can handle all these problems, all these challenges within corrections, but they didn't actually provide a plan to do so.
So Joint Finance Committee votes for over $20 million in overtime funding and to increase some staffing at prison facilities. But you're saying this was a far cry from what Governor Evers would like.
Absolutely. And Governor Evers put significant investments into overtime because we know that our agency continues to need it, that the Department of Corrections continues to need that support, and that our workers there need that support. And while we're trying to fill all these open positions and make sure that our facilities are as safe as possible, both for inmates as well as for our workers there.
Your colleague on the committee, Democratic Senator Kelda Roys of Madison, indicates she wants more programs for people to get, back on their feet as they exit corrections, and that if you remove the closure of Green Bay Correctional Institution, that sounds like it's a foundational piece here. The reforms may not succeed, to which Republican State Senator Eric Wimberger of Oconto had this to say. Let's listen.
The facility issue has to be solved before any sort of policy, because it will result in serious felons, carjackers, robbers, drug dealers being eligible for these programs and have nowhere to go except into your community.
Okay, so pick that apart for us. Is there a conflict between wanting support programs and upgrading facilities?
I don't believe so. I think that by providing support programs, the way the Department of Corrections really works is that they move people from risk levels down to the next risk level, right? Medium security goes down to a lower security threshold. It isn't like an immediate release out into the community without having the treatment and care and the step downs that are required. And so we really do need to have the policy pieces in place to make sure that we're providing the services to the people who need it, that there isn't like a backlog of people to get the services and treatments that they require in prison so that they can move down and they can move into being safer inmates and having the treatment that they need for all of this to succeed. I mean, the plan, it was a comprehensive plan proposed by Governor Evers. And look, I don't expect the Republicans are going to agree with everything he does or everything that we choose to do. But what they did yesterday was not provide a plan. They just kicked the can down the road again on a major issue, something that we continue to have increasing inmate populations. We simply don't have the capacity to handle all of this. And so we really, really need a actual plan, something that will be functional long term and that can give the state a direction as to how we want to head on corrections.
But we did hear yesterday from co-chair Mark Bourne that policy doesn't belong in the 2-year budget. And what I'm hearing, though, is in order to do an overhaul of the state correction system, policy has a place in the budget.
Yeah, well, and I noted in the finance hearing, as you may recall, that they had policy in their motion as well. It's this shield that they like to hide behind, that there couldn't possibly be policy in the budget, except when they need to, they put policy in as well. And so I think that we need to have a full conversation about what direction we want corrections to head in, how we want to be able to handle the challenges that agency is facing. And some of that will require a policy conversation. And to divorce the finances from the policy doesn't really seem to make much sense when it comes to corrections.
We're talking about the latest votes by the state's Budget Writing Committee Joint Finance with Democratic State Representative Tip McGuire of Kenosha, a committee member. The tax package last week, moving ahead with that $1.3 billion tax cut plan in Joint Finance Committee's version of the next state budget. It was approved along a party line vote. Republicans say this is a middle-class income tax cut. Why don't you support it?
Well, I'll say the tax cut is juxtaposed directly against the number one issue that people in the state requested from us. What we heard at listening sessions across the state were that school districts, whether they're rural or urban, whether they had a referendum or didn't have a referendum, are struggling and that they need investment. And we failed to give the investment that everyone has been asking us for. We failed to do what we need to do with our public schools and give our kids an opportunity to succeed. And in exchange for that, I want to point this out, in exchange for that, we got a tax cut that means at maximum, a Wisconsin working family, people of working age, men and women, would get a maximum of $5 a week. Does that seem like a fair exchange to say, look, we're not going to invest in your kids, we're not going to invest in the future of the state, but you can get $5 a week back? I feel like that just seems to me like if we wanted to target this, I think the governor has done tax credits in the past that would provide a 10% tax cut for income tax cut for working families. That would have been very helpful. There are a number of different tax plans that we could go with, but instead we did $5 a week and for a huge amount of money. And I just feel as though for working people, that's both too little and it also comes at a great cost because it was juxtaposed against the investments that we should have made in education, but we didn't.
So you think that a plan like this would then have a domino effect, have detrimental impacts on the number of school referendums hitting ballots?
Absolutely. I think that we are in a cycle of referendum and we have not provided our school districts with the support to avoid that. I mean, take, for example, my school district in Kenosha. Last I checked, they had a $19 million budget gap, and $13 million of those dollars would be gone. They would only have a $6 million budget gap, which maybe they have work that they have to do in other places. But that budget gap would only be $6 million if the state of Wisconsin fulfilled our promise and funded special education at 60%.
So your next
and that's what everyone was asking for. That's what we heard across the state from school administrators, from parents, from kids, from teachers. everyone was saying 60% special education support. And the governor also put additional money into the equalization aid or the general school aids, as I mentioned earlier, which has the mutual benefit of helping our schools and lowering property taxes, which have been hit by having so many referendums. I just feel like there was tremendous irresponsibility in how they crafted the education budget this year.
As this committee continues to build this budget blueprint, your next meeting with JFC is tomorrow. What part of tomorrow's agenda is on your mind now, and how are you preparing?
Well, I think that every agency is important in the work they do. I know that the Department of Children and Families, the Department of Justice, some portions of the Department of Health Services, I think the public health portion, are going to be up tomorrow. And so certainly I want to make sure that every Wisconsinite has access to making sure that they can get to work each day by having childcare available to them. I want to make sure that people can live in safe and healthy neighborhoods. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on.
I want to move back to one thing that the committee voted on: budget additions for public defenders and district attorneys, adding 42 prosecutors in 23 counties. I want to get your take on that. How does this match up with what Evers wants in the court system?
So let's start here. They did not add 42 positions. They removed 28 positions and then added 42 into different areas. Okay. And so it is not a direct add of 42. I believe the governors would have provided a net benefit of 47 positions, including making permanent some of the federal positions that have already been created through ARPA dollars. Mm-hmm. But what we're actually doing here is shifting positions from places that the governor had placed using federal dollars, including following the Wisconsin DA Association's needs assessment and other things like that, in making his determination. And instead, they shifted that to places that under that needs assessment also needed positions. But for example,
Gotcha.
I mean, in Kenosha County, we have 2 federal positions right now, and then the joint finance motion would give us, I think, 2 as well. And so you subtract 2 and then you add 2. Is what they
Shifting around.
For my county.
We have to leave it there. Democratic State Representative Tip McGuire of Kenosha, a member of the legislature's Joint Finance Committee, with that update.
Coming up on Wisconsin Today, an immigration attorney in East Central Wisconsin is helping local Haitian immigrants who have been ordered to self-deport by the Trump administration.
Most of these people came here because their life back in Haiti was consumed by violence.
A Wisconsin community grappling with the end of a humanitarian parole program. That's next from WPR News. It's Wisconsin Today. I'm Rob Farrett.
And I'm Kate Archer-Kent. The Department of Homeland Security has ended a Biden-era humanitarian parole program that allowed people under threat in their home country to live and work in the U.S. legally.
That program admitted more than 500,000 people to the U.S., including Haitian immigrants living in a small city in east central Wisconsin.
In New London, a group of French-speaking immigrants have been in that community for about 2 years. They received a notification last week sent to them in English, encouraging that they self-deport immediately.
We have 2 members of the New London community who have been working with this group of Haitian migrants.
Mark Christopher is an immigration attorney, and Elaine Pohl is a retired librarian and volunteer translator. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us. It's our pleasure.
Same here.
Mark, let's start with you. You had expected this announcement from the Department of Homeland Security for months. You've been living and working with this community for years. What are their legal options in this moment?
They're very limited. In some cases, an individual may be able to apply for asylum, but asylum is a very detailed and specific type of relief. And many of our clients, while they face torture, while they face violence, they may not qualify for the actual asylum grant. Short of having an immediate relative in the United States who's also a United States citizen, there are no options for them.
You have attempted to make asylum cases for some people. Not all those cases were successful, I understand. Why is that?
Yes, many people think that if you can prove that you're going to be harmed or tortured going back to your home country, that you qualify for asylum. That's not the case. Asylum is very specific. you have to show that you're going to be harmed or tortured by the government. And you also have to prove the motivation about why the government is coming after you. You have to show they're coming after you because of your political opinion, your race, nationality, or your membership to some other particular social group. For most of these individuals, they're scared to go back because there are gangs in the community that run lawless, and they operate with impunity all throughout the country of Haiti. And they don't necessarily work directly with the government, and they don't choose you to harm you because of your political opinion, your race, or membership to any group. They come after you because they're seeking money, and they're looking to extort, and they're looking to cause fear, really.
Elaine, you have been a volunteer French translator for this community since they arrived in 2023. What have you been hearing from some of the families over the last few months?
Well, they've been very happy to live where they are. They found jobs. The schools embrace their children. They have tried to live the life of the immigrants. We have documented over a couple centuries almost now. And all of a sudden, the rug is pulled from under them.
You said they have found jobs and become rooted in the community. What are some of those jobs like?
In their home countries, in Haiti, the people I most acquainted with came from Haiti, and they speak Haitian Creole and French and are learning English. So those are the people I interact with. They had, for the most part, middle-class lives. I know one was a mechanic, another one was a carpenter, another one was a phlebotomist, one was a grocer, and one was a technical school professor. And they abandoned not just their jobs, but their homes, their families, because their lives were threatened. And thought they had found a welcoming country.
Elaine, you have spent time with this community. How has your life been changed by this group of Haitian immigrants and what you've learned from them?
I feel extremely privileged because of my native language, because the school contacted me, and that's a while back now, it's 8 years, and asked whether I would be willing to facilitate registration or meeting with parents, open houses, and so on and so forth. Don't imagine that I'm very busy with that job, but it's occasional and very fulfilling because I feel I can make a difference in the family's integration. And they're so willing to listen to the teachers' advice, the administration's advice. And of course, the kids are thriving. For the parents, it's quite a bit harder. I don't know if your listeners have experienced learning a foreign language past age 30, but that's quite complex. But the kids soak it up and becoming de facto translators for their parents.
You've been part of very special life moments, milestones like a teacher conference or an open house.
Yes, and you ask how it made a difference for me. Well, I would have never had a chance unless I was asked by the school to translate, to get to know immigrants in our area because they work long hours. They keep to themselves, not by design, but because in many cases they are shy and their understanding of English being limited. It's difficult for them to get fully integrated, but I have come to know about some of their customs. They love to cook in many families, and you get into their homes and it smells wonderful. But what I wish is that more of our community had a chance to get to know them, because we lead, unfortunately, very parallel lives, and that hampers true understanding and true communication. Sometimes we hear terrible things. I go back to the Springfield, Ohio incident that just inspired our community to really work hard to get to know our neighbors, our newcomer community. But it's not that easy. You cannot knock on someone's door and say, "I'd love to meet you." And in many cases, you don't want to scare people. You don't want to infringe on them. So I understand why it's difficult for people to know their story as well, and that's why I'm grateful for this opportunity to amplify their story.
Thank you. We're talking with volunteer translator Elaine Pohl and immigration attorney Mark Christopher about their work with a group of Haitian immigrants in New London whose legal status has recently been terminated by the Trump administration. Mark, looking at this letter, and it says, in part, the Biden administration lied to America. They allowed more than 500,000 poorly vetted aliens from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, and their immediate family members to enter the U.S. through these disastrous parole programs, end quote. Is that true? Have people in this program been properly vetted?
What this program is that everybody who entered has been vetted. In other words, they have gone through criminal background checks. And in addition to that, they also have to have a sponsor here in the United States, somebody who has agreed to help them acclimate themselves in the United States, and also to provide some basic means of financial support if they need it. But in almost every case, they don't, because these individuals have found jobs right away. They've got acclimated into the community. The self-sufficiency of the individuals here has just been amazing.
Another part of that notification said that the parole program allowed immigrants to compete for American jobs and undercut American workers. There have been reports that at least 100 of the Haitian immigrants worked at Tyson Foods, the meat processing plant in New London. What impact have these immigrants had on the local economy?
And again, I disagree with that. And you don't have to take my word for it. Go ask any of the employers, the manufacturers, the builders, the construction company owners that are here in central Wisconsin. These are very good, hardworking laborers that we're so desperately in need. And whether it's here, whether it's in Ohio, what we've seen is that there has been just a labor shortage. People who choose not to work. We've got companies who can't fill voids. I've talked to people who work at the Tyson plant, and they've indicated to me they are so happy that these individuals are here. It gives them more freedom in their schedule. They're no longer working double shifts. They're no longer having to work the night shift. They're able to take more vacations when they want to. So it's provided flexibility not only for the businesses themselves, but also the other so-called American workers that work there as well, too.
Elaine, you referenced hardworking families. What would you like to add about this?
Well, I would echo Mark's words about their schedule. For instance, this weekend, they were working on Saturday when a lot of people take the weekend off. Not only do they take the extra hours, but they also work weekends. They're so ready to take any shift. Many of them work second shift, or third shift. That's not appealing to most of us after a few years. So they take all the jobs that really beginning workers have to take. And I would like to add that no matter how tired they were, they still came to my classes. I gave classes at the Washington Center in New London, and they would come to learn English. Now, the Fox Valley Tech has replaced me, and they take the classes online or in person, but they work so hard at what they do without complaining. I must add that Mark probably be more able to talk about this than me, but when I translated for the asylum request, I was stunned by their stories because I knew those people, or I thought I knew those people. But hearing their heart-rending or reading their heart-rending stories also changes me, of course. I didn't realize, because I've never asked about the trauma they've gone through. It's not my place. So they go about their day in a cheerful way. I would add that many of them are very religious. And their faith, as a matter of fact, is just this morning I received a message telling me God will provide. And their faith sustains, it's hard to put a percentage, but I would say at least 80% of the Haitians I know.
Mark, have any of your clients been fearful or reluctant to go to meetings or hearings regarding asylum status and the process that plays out in the legal realm?
Absolutely, they have. They are aware of all of the reports that we've been seeing nationwide of ICE coming to different locations, of picking up people rather indiscriminately. I have had a number of informational sessions, both at our library there and in my office. And I find that, some people do show up, but then there's some other people who say, I would go, but I just don't want to present myself where I could potentially be picked up by ICE. And or their friends will tell me that, oh, I had a friend who was going to come, but they're a little nervous because it's being held at the library, and they're concerned that ICE could get wind of this informational session and be there. So they're aware of what's going on nationwide, and it scares them.
Department of Homeland Security said if people self-deport, they'll receive a $1,000 exit bonus once they arrive in their home country. What might some of these community members be going back to, and how would they make a relocation possible?
Yeah, what I tell people is to put yourself in their situation. In other words, you've been told that you can come into a country whereby you're safe, whereby you can work. And they're so happy to have just the most basic things in life: clean water, a bed to sleep in, the opportunity to earn a decent wage. Most of these people came here because their life back in Haiti was consumed by violence, by not knowing whether or not they would be able to get medical care, not being able to sustain a job because they may be extorted by the local gangs. Some of the cases that I've worked on involve, a gentleman whose house was set on fire and destroyed by a local gang because he did not pay a ransom. We've also had another gentleman who was held at gunpoint by an opposition political group. And so this is the world that they're coming from. And just to have the things that we take for granted every day: safety, food, a job, a warm bed, that's what they want to have.
Elaine, you've scheduled a meeting with your local representatives about the situation, and I wonder, what is your message to lawmakers and fellow New London community members about this group of people who've developed lives here in Wisconsin?
Well, first, I want to speak about the community at large that has been quite supportive. When I've reached out to several groups, they've said, how can we help? And so a small group has really gotten together and say, what can we do in practical terms? And so we've started to raise funds through the community credit union, the local community credit union, and people have contributed money. So because they don't know what to do to help right now. As far as our lawmakers, I personally quite disappointed. I have sent personal letters to our federal officials, and none have deigned to even acknowledge my letters. And recently, our state senator has, and so we have a meeting scheduled for next week with several HR people from companies who employ our immigrants, because as Mark said, again, they're very proud. Those companies are very proud of their immigrant population. They want to hang on to them. So I wanted our elected officials to understand how crucial those people are, because I figured that possibly economic arguments would hold sway, but apparently nothing does. And for the life of me, I can't understand the sheer cruelty, the disregard for other human beings, and this truly dehumanizing of the other is hard to take when we talk so much about being Wisconsin nice.
Well, Elaine and Mark, thank you for sharing this story, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
It is my pleasure.
Elaine Pohl is a retired librarian and volunteer translator in the East Central Wisconsin community of New London. Mark Christopher is an immigration attorney with offices in Appleton and Milwaukee. They've been working with a group of Haitian immigrants in New London who abruptly had their legal immigration status terminated by the Trump administration.
Coming up on Wisconsin Today, UW-Whitewater wins the National Division III Baseball Championship. The head coach joins the show.
I couldn't have been prouder of the young men because they set the goal and they accomplished it.
The story behind their success, that's next here on WPR News. You're listening to Wisconsin Today. I'm Rob Farrett.
And I'm Kate Archer-Kent. It's time for Wisconsin Life. Here's producer Maureen McCullum with a story about a Madison woman who's trying to revive flax and linen production in Wisconsin. The story comes just ahead of this weekend's Field to Frock event.
You may be familiar with flax seeds, adding them to baked goods or your breakfast, but there's a lot more to the plant. Flax grows about 3 feet tall and produces beautiful blue flowers. It's one of the oldest domesticated plants, with humans first using its fibers more than 30,000 years ago. And Leslie Schrader dreams of growing more of it in Wisconsin. That would make it possible to build a flax to linen industry in the state. Schrader envisions a market for sustainable, local clothing inspired by the farm-to-table movement. To jumpstart this effort, the Madison resident helped create the Midwest Linen Revival, which is organizing events to educate farmers and artisans on how to help the industry grow. It's also why her driveway was filled with a big bundle of long, dried flax stems and wooden machines to process the plant on a recent morning.
So if you are hand processing your flax, then you are starting out with the ripple, where you're going to just pull the flax through there and get the seed off of it.
The seeds fall to the ground as she pulls the flax stems through a big comb. Schrader moves on to the next machine, called the brake, which looks like a big wooden paper cutter. Each whack breaks the fiber from the shive, which looks like straw. After that,
this next step is called scutching, and my hand's kind of behind this board just to keep my hand safe. And hitting it with a paddle, it's more like a fan blade across it. I'm just getting another bit of that shive off.
I'm going to be real. I had no idea that linen came from flax until we talked.
Yeah, most people don't.
People eat flax seeds for omega-3s and fiber. Its linseed oil is used as a wood finish. Flax can also be used to make paper, insulation, or a surfboard.
Every part of this plant is useful. which is why the scientific name of this plant is called Linum usatatissimum, which means the plant most useful.
European immigrants first brought flax to Wisconsin, which has an ideal climate for growing the crop. And that's why Schrader believes her flax to linen dream could become a reality in the region. She's been testing flax varieties on farms around southern Wisconsin. She's hoping to increase understanding of the plant and convince more farmers to grow flax for linen with the help of UW's Emerging Crop Program and the Wisconsin Farmers Union.
So what I say to people is absolutely get some flax seed, put it in the ground, get to know the plant a little bit, but we're not ready to scale up to something at an agricultural level yet.
That's because Wisconsin and the region needs a large-scale processing facility to spin the fibers and create linen.
So right now, we're just at this level. Like I said, it's very beautiful, artisanal, hand-scaled. What we need is that processing facility that can be something like a quarter of an acre could handle. Because right now, if you grow that much, is going to be this hand processing project extremely labor-intensive.
That would take time and significant investments from the public and private sectors. But this dream of Schrader's, it's not unprecedented. Wisconsin had these facilities during the Civil War era, when the North was trying to reduce its dependence on Southern cotton. The government encouraged farmers in places like Wisconsin to grow flax for linen. At one point, there were 2 linen mills in the state, but they closed by the early 1900s. Schrader walks me through the final step of hand processing flax, called hackling. She drags the fibers through a bed of nails. The bundle now looks like a blonde or flaxen-haired ponytail.
The fiber itself is just getting a little bit softened in this process too.
Schrader's dream to bring back flax and linen production isn't solely based on aesthetics and artistry. She'd like to see a local clothing, slow fashion movement to help create a more sustainable future.
We can't talk at all about clothing without talking about what massive problems we have with our current textile industry. Energy consumptive and resource consumptive, not just from the processing, but all the way through to the end. So when we've got so many synthetic garments, the wearing of them is breaking apart in little bits of plastic. It goes into our water.
These issues and the linen dream will be at the center of the upcoming Field to Frock event, which Schrader is organizing through Midwest Linen Revival. People can learn more about growing flax and try their hand at processing it, too. Wisconsin Life is a co-production of Wisconsin Public Radio and PBS Wisconsin. Additional support comes from Lowell and Mary Peterson of Appleton. Find more Wisconsin Life at wisconsinlife.org and on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Maureen McCullum.
And the Field to Frock events take place in the Madison area this weekend. This is Wisconsin Today.
Wisconsin has a new national champion this year. UW-Whitewater won the Division III National Baseball Championship earlier this month with a record 74 runs scored over their final 5 games.
The Warhawks have been a standout in the D3 world. This year's team won the most games in program history with a 49-6 record on their way to the school's 3rd national championship since 2005.
John Vodenlich has been the head coach of the UW-Whitewater baseball team for the last 22 seasons. He was inducted into the American Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame last year. John, welcome to Wisconsin Today.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, after finishing last year as the national runner-up, how did it feel to get over the top this time around?
Amazing. It was surreal, and I can tell you it was. I've never been a part of something like this. We've done similar things before, but the moment we lost about a year ago, our players set this as their new standard, and I'm sure a lot of people, that's no big deal. People, set goals all the time, but this team, the minute they walked off the field last year, they were not happy, and they used it the whole year, and so for it to actually happen exactly the way they scripted it. That doesn't happen a lot in sports because, there's all kinds of things that can happen along the way. Injuries, bad breaks, those types of things. So I couldn't have been prouder of the young men because they set the goal and they accomplished it.
Now, it's winning the World Series is great in and of itself. How you did it, a dominant regular season, your last game, this nail-biter at 21-5. I mean, your team was just the clear dominant force in D3 baseball this year, it looks like. Can you talk about how the players carried that vow to be back there and win it this time through so persuasively?
I think it was, there was just some luck that went into the timing of it because 2 weeks, 3 weeks earlier, we weren't playing great baseball. And, you look at a team, and if you have 9 guys in the offensive lineup, maybe 3 are hot and 3 are okay, and 3 just aren't performing up to their abilities. So you have that dynamic happening throughout the season, and you find a way still to win games and put yourself in a good position. But by the time we got to the championship series, it appeared that all 9 players were locked in. And that doesn't happen also much in baseball. So I got to give a credit to them. They showed up every day, and I think by the end they were playing with confidence, and all 9 hitters were contributing. So that doesn't happen a lot, and like I said, it was a privilege to be there watching it.
Well, you mentioned luck, but hold on. As a coach, is there something that you do when you see, hey, things aren't firing on all cylinders? What do I do to make sure the team is ready for the playoffs and the World Series?
Yeah, there's no great secret, and any coach that knows anything about baseball, or I think the best sport comparison really is golf. And a lot of people compare us to basketball or football, but I don't think those are real comparisons. Golf is how many times do you see one of the best golfers in the nation just not score a certain day? They're making shots, but they're just not putting, they're not scoring. And I think baseball is a lot like that. And there's not a lot we can do except just show up and grind every day. And of course, early work and late work with some of the players that are struggling, just to get them to feel better about their swing and about their approach. Certainly we try to do those things, but I've never seen all the pieces fall in place quite so seamlessly. So once again, I can't take a lot of credit for that. I credit the players for really sticking with it and grinding through the lows, and then being able to perform, in a big stage when they need to.
How much of your team comes back next year? I assume you're already starting to think about next year at least a little bit.
Yeah, we lost, one big arm, 80 innings or so on the mound. And then 5 of our 9 starters are gone. And they are players that, quite frankly, you can't replace, 1-to-1. You just can't. Matt Skolin was a 4-year starter in left field. He broke almost every record we hold. Every record. I mean, he broke every record book. And then Adam Kootway broke the record for most home runs, and he would have broke even more records had he been with us a whole 4 years. So, and that's true of all the players. And then you got a guy like Sam Payton, who was a senior in right field. He became most famous because he hit the home run that ended Birmingham Southern's school a year ago. And that kind of competitiveness is hard to replace. And then you got Eli Frank, arguably one of the best first basemen that we've ever had. So you lose quite a bit. And I'm missing Darryl Jackson, who's just a premier shortstop for us. So when you lose those types of guys, it's not as easy as just plugging a new guy in. But I'm hoping the returning players will all, pull up their bootstraps a little bit and give a little bit more. And then we're going to work really hard on bringing in some players that can help us.
We're talking about UW-Whitewater's baseball team winning the Division III National Championship earlier this month. John Vodenlich is with us, head coach of that team. John, you've been head coach for just over 2 decades now. 3. This is your 3rd World Series. I went back over your career there to find how many losing seasons you had. Check my math. I think the answer is 0 of them. What is it about UW-Whitewater that has this amazing baseball tradition going?
Well, it didn't start with me. I played for Jim Miller, who was a legend in the baseball community. And then I came back as an assistant for him. And we really laid the groundwork together, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. We had a tremendous group of talented student athletes throughout the history of our program. That group of players played years ago, but they're still very active in what we are. I mean, we'll get calls all the time about a player that they saw, right, that they think should be a Warhawk. So our network has been laid for a long time. We had a solid foundation with Jim Miller. And then most recently, we've benefited from a number of things, including a tremendous school that's value priced in a great part of the state. and a commitment by our administration to give us the tools we need to win. So it's not as easy as just the head coach getting all the credit. We have a number of the pieces of the puzzle that you need that are here, and great facilities, of course. So I'm privileged to be here and be a part of this tradition.
You mentioned some of the appealing things about UW-Whitewater. I imagine for recruiting players, nothing succeeds like success, right? Does your track record at UW-Whitewater, the team's track record, help bring people? I saw your roster, a lot of Wisconsin kids coming in, but you're pulling from Texas and Florida and all over the country.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think when we talk about performance and success, we're talking about team success, which has been tremendous. You've named some of it, but our program has been to the College World Series 10 times. I've been fortunate to be involved in 9 of those times, and of course only 3 national championships. So getting there is just part of that journey. But for many programs, they've never been there. And so for us to be there 10 times, that's awesome. And that speaks kind of to the programmatic success. But then you look at the student athlete success, and that's where it really gets impressive. 45 players that have signed professional contracts, several guys that have been in the big leagues, currently a guy at AAA and single A. And then you see what they do with their career and their degree. And we got doctors and lawyers and politicians. And, Quint Studer is a tremendous alum. He owns the Blue Wahoos, which is in Pensacola, AA affiliate of the Marlins. He owns the Beloit Sky Carp, which is here in Beloit. That's the A affiliate of the Marlins. And his support has been tremendous because that's where we do our spring training. So you look at, like, from a programmatic standpoint, yeah, we've had tons of success, but then you start looking at these individuals that have gone out and done special things, and not just Quint, but I mean, we got tremendous support from them, but very proud of what they've done. And whether they're in law enforcement or they're in the medical profession, we have a lot of Warhawks are doing really, really well. And I think that speaks also to, the off-field pieces, like our degree and our education and our ability to network and things like that. So, yeah, very proud of both on and off the field performance.
As we wrap up, you might think, oh, okay, you won the championship. Now you get some time off to chill. I'm guessing the recruiting schedule has you back at work already.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's all kinds of weird things, like, you win the national championship and the university sends you an email reminding you that your expense reports need to be turned in. So, there's everyone says, well,
Living
what do
the
you do? Yeah, what are you doing? Well, you're not just going out and playing the game. You're recruiting, you're fundraising, you're administering, you're doing accounting, you're doing all those things. But I'm not complaining, all right? Those are all part of building a program. And, life is busy right now, but it's better than the reverse, or it's better than the other options, right? So I'm enjoying the busyness right now and all the attention we're getting. So thanks again for the coverage.
John, again, congratulations to your team, and thanks for taking the time with us.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
John Vodenlich is head baseball coach at UW-Whitewater. He was with us to talk about the Warhawks' record-setting Division III national championship run this season. Tomorrow on the show, we'll visit Blanchardville in southwestern Wisconsin. They had to shut down their public swimming pool a few years back. We'll hear about the community effort to replace it with a new public swimming pond.
And on a warm and humid summer week, we want to hear from you. What is your favorite place to go swimming in your community? Is it a lake? Is it a public pool? Maybe it is a swimming pond. Tell us about it.
A pool and a pond? Is the pond good for you? Get in touch with us by email, wisconsintoday@wpr.org, or you can call or text at 888-642-0232. That's 888-642-0232.
All right, take it from here, Rob. I'm headed over to the neighborhood pool. That's it.
Wisconsin Today producers include Avery Lee Rogers, Mackenzie Crummy, and Lauren Cox. Our technical directors are Sarah Hopeful and Tyler Ditter. Learn more about us at wpr.org/Wisconsin Today. I'm Rob Farrett.
And I'm Kate Archer-Kent. You're listening to WPR News.